Hello, everybody, and welcome to Post Political Podcast. I'm the host, Derek Britton, and I am super excited about the guest tonight. He's one of my good friends, Jeremy. But first, let's get to the advertisements. So, first up, we have Vermin Supreme Institute. Our purpose is to inspire social evolution through the disruption of authoritarianism, to promote compassionate activism, and to spread knowledge of redacted history. Through the use of humor, direct action, and mutual aid, we uplift the disaffected, the disenfranchised, and the disempowered. And then next up, we have Brewed Coffee. So Brewed Coffee is down in Kentucky. They are a wonderful little coffee shop. They also serve, a few beer and wine as well. You can go down there if you're local, but if not, you can use my affiliate link and buy some of their merchandise. They have awesome, shirts, mugs, face masks, all sorts of stuff. So feel free. I will put that in the comments for you to check out. And support local business and kick a little bit back to the podcast. So thanks everybody for joining tonight. Like I said, I'm super excited about our guest. I've met Jeremy actually at the Spike event in Boston. I talked to him a little bit before then online, but that's where I got to first meet him face to face, which was great. And I can't wait to talk to him. Yeah, he's a local activist, very involved leader, and he's doing some big stuff in Boston. And I can't wait to introduce you all to him. So let's bring him in. Here's Jeremy. How you doing, man?
Hey guys. Oh man,
how you doing tonight, man?
How are you? I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a busy Thursday for work and stuff, and with little baby Kennedy, but everything's going good. So it's been just a good overall day. Good night to have a podcast.
Yo, I'm so excited for you and your wife, bro. Like this whole parenthood thing, like, dude, you guys are gonna be great.
Thanks, man. No, it's been fun so far, and I look forward to every piece of it. It's been pretty awesome. So I want to kind of introduce you to the folks on the Post Political Podcast. This community is pretty awesome. They've really stepped up and came to watch a ton of the recent episodes we've had, and I'm super excited to introduce you because you're a good friend of mine now, and you're doing some big stuff in Boston. But first off, I wanted to kind of hear how you got to where you are politically. What was your journey to get to the third party system, and what led you down this path, I guess.
Oh man, this is a journey, man. So I started off, my first introduction to libertarianism was Ben Shapiro, right? It was a very, very weird introduction, especially because I like the fact that he was like quote unquote owning the people he was debating against. Up until like a much later date, but being the captain of my high school debate team, I was like, yo, this dude's like so good and he's making such good points, yada yada. At least I'm thinking he's making good points at this time.
Right.
And then I don't know what started pulling me away from him, but I think like the activism I was doing at the time was really conflicting with everything that he was saying, right? Because I was at the time a Black LGBT activist, right? So like, what am I doing listening to Ben Shapiro? So I kind of like pull away from his content a little more, and I start listening to Dave Rubin. This is around 2016, Dave Rubin. So this is before the shift,
Yep.
So I'm starting listening to him like, yeah, like, okay, this sounds more my speed. Like that left libertarianism. Okay, this is kind of cool. And then I come to college and I meet this person named Gabby, and she's like, what kind of libertarian are you? Because we both find out we're libertarians. And then she's like, well, I'm a civil libertarian. And like, I start talking about like my views on things more. And then I'm like, actually, yeah, I actually we agree with each other on a lot. I think I'm also a civil libertarian. I think civil liberties are like the most important thing in this country.
Yep.
And then from there, it's like, then SFL comes to my campus and then this snowball effect starts. So I go to one SFL conference, I become a leader. And then now, next thing I know, like I'm promoting left libertarianism in my community. And there was just like this one time, like I didn't know what I wanted to do with this like level of activism, this platform, with these resources or anything like that. So I said, okay, you have access to resources, you have access to SFL, you have access to a wide network now. What do you want to do? Sat down with myself and I said, well, who am I? And I sat and I was like, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm a teacher. I feel like in a lot of ways I like to educate people.
Yep.
Point blank period baseline. So I took it upon myself to say, hey, what's like, how do I practically apply liberty like values of liberty in my community.
Yep.
And like do it in such a pragmatic way that it actually helps benefit their lives. So I'm like, well, what's economic out here? Finances, hello, personal finances are huge.
Right.
Especially because you have so many people who think that they know about their finances until someone says, hey, no, like there's having child support can limit you in so many ways, and a lot of people don't know stuff like that, or like how to dispute items on your credit report, or what you can and can't dispute, or what are your rights, right? As a borrower, right? So things like this, it's just like there are so many misconceptions around this stuff. And financial education is a lot like sex education. Misinformation is abound, honestly, and it's not taught in schools. And a lot of people kind of like miss that part of life. So I'm like, you know what? This is what I want to do. This is what we're gonna do. And SFL has supported me so much in this journey. And from here, it's just like from there, I get introduced more to like the LP at a convention. I think it was LibertyCon 2019. I met Dan Fishman. I was like, this is back when my goal was to be mayor of Boston by 2040. And Dan Fishman, I was talking to him. He was looking at me. He was like, whoa, that's big. He was like, we got to talk more. And so he introduced me to Daniel. Daniel introduced me to Michael. Michael introduced me to Spike, and like that whole the whole team around bringing Spike to Boston. And then the next thing I know, we bring him to Boston, and the next thing I get elected by these folks as like chairman of LP Boston. And I was just so grateful. I was like, whoa, this feels above me now. So like it's kind of my journey. It's all this.
That's awesome, man. No, that's great. It's awesome to see because you take I saw you take an initiative during the bringing Spike to Boston. Every time I talk to you, there's something new that you're working on that is pretty exciting. So I'm super happy to see that the folks in Boston saw that as well and decided to have you elected as chair. One of the things I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about, and for the audience, they might not be as familiar. There's folks from kind of the political spectrum that watch the show. You mentioned SFL a couple of times. Can you expound upon that and actually, just give us what that acronym means as well?
Absolutely. So SFL stands for Students for Liberty. They actually gave me this hat and the drug war. Let's just show that. Oh my God, the camera always confuses me. But and the drug war, that's part of the and the drug war campaign. But Students for Liberty is really just this liberal organization that focuses on empowering and educating the next generation of future like liberty leaders. Period. Blank. Their mission is to make us exactly that, and essentially like really create us or implant in our mind ways to turn our liberty thoughts into activism and real action. So like they've been a huge help as far as like getting through like, okay, what actions aren't libertarian, like what I can't do, what are other people doing? And they help you get connected to like a wide network, and it's a beautiful organization, man. It really is.
I've heard great things about it, and like from others as well. I've heard that it's really a positive organization. They enable a lot of individuals to do some incredible things. It's impressive to see. I mean, it's hard to, capture someone in that time period and try to not capture, but like, capture their mind and try to help grow that in a positive direction in the activism that they already want to do. And what I feel like a lot of people don't get right away is that they're already doing a lot of things in their normal everyday lives that is very aligned with libertarianism. Even if they don't even if they're not super fiscally conservative, or they're still doing things maybe on the civil liberty side, like you're saying, that are very, very libertarian, and they just don't categorize it as that. But no, I feel like there's, especially in those years that most folks go to college, that's a great time for folks to enter into this, and really learn about how to use the tools that are kind of around them to promote the things that they want to promote and stuff. So no, that's great. And I've seen your you interact a ton with different protests going on or actual direct action activism. Tell us a little bit more about that. There's a ton of obviously direct action going on in Boston and in other cities around the country. How do you harness that to do some good and positive and really grow the message that you're trying to grow?
Absolutely. I feel like not to say that the summer was a failure, but I feel like the summer we had a lot of energy, but not a lot of action.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're kind of in the space in Boston, whereas like BLM has sort of died down as far as like official BLM has sort of died down. A lot of the marches and protests that they've been doing.
Yep.
Um, but as far as we've been more committed to action as a city, period, point blank. A lot of the more organizations I've done work with, for instance, Yahida and Domingos'
Yep.
South Roxbury partnership. They've been constantly having on elected representatives in almost every one of their Zooms. Like it's just so many of the Zooms. They have so many elected officials, and then they have them come in, sit down with the communities that they represent, and
Yep.
hear what people have to say. It's a very beautiful thing, and that's definitely one of the ways like actions being taken. We have Refuse Fascism
Yep.
constantly out here networking and showing up for every protest they can, putting on whatever events they can for people. We have events. Whew, I think the one of the bigger things was like the free shimmy hashtag. We got the free Naeem hashtag going on. Like we have so many activists who were put in jail and who were abused throughout the summer,
Yeah.
while we were protesting, right? Because you have police lying on them. You have other pro Trump counter protesters lying on them. Even when
Right.
everything's caught on video, these guys are getting like abused because in very like pro police states, like there's this authoritarian regime going down where people just want to see you hurt or in pain because you simply disagree with them.
Right.
And people
Yeah.
like, yeah,
No, it's just I just see it as a whole. The polarization of kind of the talking points and the rhetoric that has been kind of going on, and people say oh, this has just been going on this has been going on way longer than the last 4 years. This has been kind of mounting year on year ever since I can remember in the political world. The more people have been slow is trying to stop talk about it with folks they disagree with, the more polarized it's allowed to become, because people are no longer talking and they're just listening to specific mouthpieces on one side or the other, telling them to not like the other side.
right.
So I think like what you're saying is, the folks in Boston, I don't think I've seen the same like you said, you guys got a bunch of the hashtags going as well, and people talking about police brutality happening in Boston. I feel like a lot of folks in Massachusetts turn a blind eye to what goes on in Boston and in Massachusetts in general, because they see it as this blue super civil liberty pro state, but in reality the police union is just as strong here as it is in many other, even stronger than in many other states.
And then there are economic facts just to simply support these statements. Like, for instance, we don't view Boston as a racist city, even though it consistently gets ranked as one of America's most segregated and racist cities. Why?
Absolutely.
Because it's in the north. It's sort of that north versus south racism, where the racism makes the oppressed think that it's their fault that they're oppressed, that it's something inherently within them. But I don't think it's any necessarily black person's fault in Boston, for instance, where the median net worth of a black family is $8. Right? I think we
Yep.
could blame that on our school systems, because my school shit didn't protect us.
Right.
Dude, literally, came my junior year in high school. The state of Massachusetts was suing the previous year for their MCAS scores. Mind you, was at English high school. We were in turnaround status, meaning that we got access to extra resources and were able to use our time, our school day more effectively. So
Yep.
teachers were able to divvy it up and give students the resources that they needed. So when these students start doing well, these students in a majority immigrant school start doing well, you guys come in and you guys are like, nah, there's no way, you guys cheated, you guys faked this. Mind you, the year before, one of our deans shot a student. These are the things that we deal with on like a daily basis when we talk about injustice in black schools, and then we wonder why the economics of it all comes out to just the median net worth of a black family is $8.
Right.
Like, as compared to our counterparts, our white counterparts whose median wealth is over 100,000 within Boston.
Right.
Like, these discrepancies can't be ignored, and they're here. It's just we do a real good job. We do a real good job as a city downplaying them.
Yep. And even a lot of the elected officials you've seen. I mean, I've seen personally, like you're saying, that some of the Zoom calls that the folks are doing in the South Roxbury group that you're talking about. they're getting the real questions that need to be asked in those spaces. And you take that small meeting setting where, I wish thousands of people were watching those meetings, because those meetings are important and they're actually getting asked the right questions. Where you look at, a city hall meeting or something like that, or something that's even televised online, and none of those questions, it's almost like they have plants asking the beautiful questions that are going to make everyone happy and sing kumbaya, but they're hiding a lot of things that are happening in the city that are systemic, things that need to be torn down because they've just been really lopsidedly hurting folks in different communities for generations. And like you said, Boston ranks among the most racist cities in the country. I don't see that as a big shock. I see that as a something that it seems very apparent to me. The sports in Boston, just for instance, Torrey Hunter had a no trade clause to the Boston Red Sox because it was so racist, and the shit he would hear in the stands behind him while he was playing baseball was awful, absolutely fucking awful. And I think that people don't hear those stories. Those don't make national headlines. They're just talked about among small groups of folks. And in reality, we need to start elevating a lot of these stories and start making sure that people realize there are problems in the city, and ignoring them is not going to make a difference. It's not going to make them better.
Ignoring these things definitely won't make the city any better, right? Just like ignoring sort of health crises within my community will not make anything better. I know. I'm not too sure about the entire story. I'm wearing my uncle's sweater. Right? I take him everywhere with me, anything I do. But he recently passed due to health complications, right? There's so many things that goes down, especially Boston. Like we have some of the top medical institutions out here, and yet we still see, because of what's happening in our climate, because of all this overproduction, whatever may have you, we're seeing high asthma rates within our community.
Right.
We're seeing high stroke. We're seeing a high rate of strokes within our community. We're seeing a lot of things, just like heart diseases, a whole range of things that the city isn't addressing, point blank period.
Right.
And I guess that's sort of why I do the activism that I do specifically, because it's if I'm not taking the action, right, to educate and to promote or sort of bring to light these issues,
yep,
then I'm just as bad as those people promoting these issues. I'm just as bad as these people covering up. That's how I feel.
And that's that's a strong message. I think it's good to it's tough putting that much pressure on yourself. I feel like there's a lot of other folks that should be out there doing what you're doing. You're working overtime, in my opinion. And but there's also a kind of beauty in taking something that is so negatively impacting you and your community and trying to make it into something positive, force positive change to happen. And people can get, rightfully so, just straight up angry at either whether it be the system or, and I'm sure there's some anger there, but at the end of the day, you're turning that into something to positively impact the folks around you. And I think that's incredible. That's what I think more people need to aspire to do. And I see it with when we talk on the phone and stuff, I hear about it every single time we're talking. You're telling me different stuff that you're working on, and it's wonderful. It's really cool to see. And obviously I try and support you with everything that possible.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. You're definitely one of my best supports out here as far as libertarian activism goes. You, Ashley, Michael, everybody, man.
That's great.
Shoot, me and Catherine were just out last night at a protest.
Yeah, so how's that? Where did you guys? I think I saw the invite or whatever on the Facebook, but I couldn't. I got the little one and stuff, so I wasn't getting out there. But
so Refuse Fascism had Antoine sort of as one of the MCs. Antoine is dude with the half beard and the big afro.
Yep,
love that man. He's so dope. They had him as the MC. They had a whole lineup of speakers all talking about just not accepting no honeymoon for Biden, right? We're not just gonna, just because you're in office now, we know everything that you did beforehand. We're gonna be even harder on you now because we know everything you did beforehand. And we have a Democratic Congress now. There is nothing stopping you. So we need to make sure we are on you. Point
right.
Period. That was sort of the message of the whole rally. And even in that message, we had FBI, me and Catherine and Jacob Durana, who's running for District 4.
Yep.
We all saw the FBI investigators just sitting in their little trucks, on their computers. We saw like the Boston police line up already, starting off at the gate, right behind the bandstand. We had helicopters flying over. They have 2 helicopters, if I'm not mistaken, flying over. Just you hear the choppers,
Right.
like as people are speaking, and it's insane because the turnout was like, I want to say somewhere around like 54 to like 70 people.
Yep.
And it's like all this, really.
Right.
So like, what are we really getting out of this?
Right.
It's a sad story. And now we have Marty Walsh leaving, so Kim Janey's in office, and I feel like that's who we need to be on even harder too.
Yep.
Of course, she's going to feel like she has a lot more to prove because she's interim mayor for the time being. So,
yeah, and I think one of the big things about the First Amendment, free speech, being able to actively protest is trying to hold our leaders, that we elect to the standards that they should be held to. I think again, in Boston and Massachusetts in general, I've seen a lot of people give a free pass because Boston is so liberal and blue, and it's the civil liberties are never being trampled on. And people aren't holding people accountable. They're not watching what people are doing behind the scenes. They're not watching what bills are being passed. You ask anyone in at least my area of folks that I know around here, no one knows the voting record of the elected officials that they voted in. And it's hard. I mean, you can't. There is a lot of work to actually get to that data as well. It's not readily available.
Not accessible. It's not, and that's the disgusting part, because these people, when they start running, they're like, "Hold me accountable. Hold me accountable." Point blank, period. The people who got you in office shouldn't need to hold you accountable. They should be able to trust the fact that you will hold yourself accountable to your values and the ethics that you ran on when you were running. Point blank, period. So the fact that so many people ask us as their constituents to hold them accountable for their actions, it speaks volumes to me that if you feel like you need to be held accountable in this position of power, knowing damn well that your constituents don't have the time to hold you accountable, which is why you're in this seat, because if they had the time, they would be doing it themselves. So it's messy. It's very messy.
Yeah.
The political system in its entirety is messy, because it's like, if we don't make any noise, if we don't hear about what you're doing, when you try to subvert everything that you're doing anyway, we're wrong. We get what we don't want.
Right.
Hurt us. Guys constantly hurt us.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely things that can be put in place to democratize things a little better, to show your constituents what you're actually doing. And I feel like transparency is something that a lot of folks in Green Party, LP, a lot of the third party folks, independents and stuff, People's Party, I've seen a lot of folks run on transparency as one of their main pieces of their platform. And I think that's just something that we'll see more and more of in the future as people are becoming a little bit. I mean, it's obviously a huge national conversation nowadays, especially the president, whoever the president is at the time. I'm just hoping folks will start focusing more on their local elected officials just as much as they do their national ones. But like you were saying with Biden, I just want to talk real quick about see if we are on the same page here. It's a lot of third parties, a lot of people trying to be heard will almost just become a contrarian to as a mechanism to become heard. So they'll fight against whatever person is in power or whatever. And in reality, like you said, he has the entire Congress is a Democrat majority right now. So they should be able to put through whatever piece of legislation they want to put through. So instead of trying to fight against, some of the bad thing, and I'm not saying we don't fight against that. I'm just saying, why don't we put some of the efforts into trying to decriminalize marijuana, try to, things that we can do with Democrats and make it part of a national conversation. I think that's the way that the Libertarian Party has won in the past. I personally think rights for LGBTQ individuals and marijuana legalization, libertarians had a good chunk of responsibility in making those a national conversation. And I think we can do so with, decriminalizing sex work. There's hundreds of things we could work on with the Democrats. And I feel like we should spend some time fighting the injustices and the horrible things that they're going to do. Absolutely. but we should also allot a good chunk of time working together and trying to make sure that we're, taking advantage of whatever power they have or whatever at this current time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. Like last night, they were like, "Give us something to vote for, not something to fight against." That was
Yeah.
something that was a huge quote, at least that impacted me as well. I think that Antoine had made that quote. It's a powerful thing when you have something to actually fight for rather than against. Point blank. Period. We have so much power right now. We can leverage that as libertarians with our Democrat allies, because and what kills me is that people don't see Democrats as our allies.
Right.
But that's what kills me. Like, they're not inherently our enemies. Oftentimes you'll find that we agree on civil issues or social issues, point blank, period, with Democrats across the board. Right? Like, oftentimes we'll see like anti-police brutality.
Yep.
Pro weed, many things. Even though like at the state level it's a little muggy when it comes down to it.
Right.
But generally speaking, like being pro LGBT, like giving people their rights and letting them enjoy them is something that we can, I say the majority of us can agree on.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a party, we definitely need to hunker down and focus on these issues.
Yeah, and when Justin Amash was in office, he the first bill he put in place as a libertarian, the co-sponsor was a Democrat. So I don't understand this immediate, like you were saying, why are we saying that Democrats aren't willing to work with us? You know what I mean? Like that was Aina Presley from Massachusetts, signed on to Justin Amash's bill to end qualified immunity. That was the first libertarian bill ever put through into Congress,
Dude, it's amazing. I remember, I forget, there was like a quote from AOC not too long ago that read really libertarian. Really libertarian. Geez. I really wish I came with it. It wasn't expecting this, but yeah, man.
I know Tulsi Gabbard, I don't agree with her on everything. She's had some recent bills that have been really civil rights or socially not on the same page with me. But she did say taxation is theft if you're not I don't have the exact quote, but basically if it's not representing what the people want. Basically what people are giving up to, and I think this is the halfway point to get us to where we'd ever want to be, if we were to take this thing to the full libertarian ideals or whatever, is at least having the taxes taken out of your paycheck going to something that we care about as individuals in the United States. We do not want to see all of our money, and maybe some people do, but I definitely don't, going to into the Middle East to bomb innocent people. I do not want to spend my money on that. And if I had every ability to do that, I would make sure none of my tax money did that. So I think there's a mid step there that we could take that at least would democratize some of that government spending.
I feel like ranked choice voting is definitely like the next step up. I think allowing us to vote more on what Congress actually does rather than the people in there would mean a lot more for representation in this country. Same thing. I feel like we can do a lot of things better. For instance, considering company scale when we talk about minimum wage.
Yep.
Right? Like mom and pop shops shouldn't have to compete in the employment arena with companies like Amazon.
Right.
It's like you're only creating more monopsonies.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that people do bring up against the minimum wage is the big money that gets thrown into the minimum wage conversation is Amazon, Walmart, these big corporations that can afford the $15 minimum wage. And, we do lose. And I'm not saying people aren't worth getting paid to live. I mean, people are not getting a living wage now, period. They're not making enough money to live. There needs to be some different things put in place to enable folks to do so. I just worry that we also lose the small entrepreneurs and the small business folks at the behest of the $15 minimum wage. Dude, and I don't know the right answer, but
no, we definitely don't. But we damn sure know the stats after, especially post COVID. Well, actually in COVID, so 3 times the amount of black businesses are shut down than their white counterparts. I think it's about 73% of all black businesses in the U.S. have shut down.
Yep.
And it's like we keep offering lip service to minority communities and to everyone in general about what we want to do and about what we're gonna do. But until we actually start seeing action, we're only gonna see lip service. We're always gonna see, oh, we stand with you, Black Lives Matter. But when it comes down to actually supporting us, they don't. Like, I think
Right.
the craziest thing that sort of represents that, at least in Boston, is right in what we call Nubian Square now. They have which is like sort of like the Black Economic Center of Boston. We
Yep.
have on the street Black Lives Matter painted, but then on that very same street, all the businesses that are Black owned shut down, completely boarded up, completely shut down. Not most likely not going to reopen. We've
Right.
lost a lot of culture to this pandemic and to our representatives not really protecting us,
Right.
and also to misinformation. You know,
Oh yeah.
a lot of people like depended heavily on these COVID checks, almost to a fault, because they didn't know
Yep.
whether or not they were going to come, and so they were taking on more debt as a result of it, and they didn't know whether they can pay it back, and so just a lot of people taking bets on
Right.
these people arguing so far removed from them, and it's sad.
Yeah.
It really is.
Oh, 100%. And think, one of the things that Spike and actually Dave Jones, who came on Tuesday, talked about a little bit, was they did a pound the pavement campaign basically when they were in Memphis, Tennessee, and a couple other places in the South, and they were asking folks what would make it easier for you to make a living. And 9 times out of 10, it wasn't a conversation about minimum wage. It wasn't a conversation. It was a conversation about let me do what I want to do without having to pay the government to let me do it. And
Right.
it was, there was a ton of folks that were shut down from doing barbershops and hair cutting, hair braiding, all this stuff because they didn't have a license.
Dude, even to sell eyelashes. Did you know in the state of
Yeah,
Massachusetts you need to have your fisher's license to sell eyelashes?
it's crazy. I mean,
What type of bull? Like, I'm so confused as to how like this whole occupational licensing system is supposed to help the poor. Right?
right.
I was just having this conversation with Ashley Shade when we were like, she actually said something really powerful in that occupational licensing is really just taxation for the poor, point blank period. Because if I can't afford it, I can't do what I want to do. I can't get into the field I want to get into, and I
Right.
can't grow how I want to grow financially. You know.
No, I completely agree. And it's there's a lot of good PR, let's call it, along the lines of occupational licensing and how it's for the good. It's going to just ensure that the people doing what they're doing are professionals and they're to a specific rating or whatever. And I know people say that the invisible hand of the free market is just some BS that the right likes to say a lot, or libertarians like to say a lot, or whatever. But it's reality. If you think about it, if you go to a barbershop and someone's giving you a shitty haircut, you're not going to go back to that barbershop and give them your money. So that barbershop's going to go out of business very, very quickly.
Shoot, I know a lot of people who won't even pay for that haircut. You mess up their hair.
Yeah,
That's what I
exactly.
was always told growing up. You screw up on my head. No, I'm not paying you, buddy. Bye. I'm out.
Exactly. So why do people? Why does that? Why does it make sense to charge people not only the licensing fee that you have to pay the government, which goes to just funding the municipality? It's not actually going back into the community at that point. Why do you spend that money there? But not only that, there's requirements for that license. So you need to go to a certain schools that typically lobby for these licenses to be law, and you have to spend all that money to go to that school to learn something that you've been probably doing for the last 5-10 years on your own.
Right.
And like I said, they're setting the bars higher and higher to enter into something that you might love doing. And I think that there's a lot of work that could be done with occupational licensing reform that would help a ton of folks in tougher financial spot to be able to do something that they actually love doing without having to spend $12,000 getting there. So
right, it's the same thing with degrees, man. Like a lot of I want to say occupations don't require a degree. Let's be real.
right.
Like, for instance, a lot of this is going to be a little controversial, but a lot of like accounting degrees, I would say, are a lot of times worthless because you learn most of the things from accounting on the job. A
Yep.
lot of accountants I haven't met a single accountant who's told me that school alone would have accurately prepared them for the work that they'd be doing.
Right.
And that's period. Like, to me, the only people that need to really go to school for their jobs include people like architects, people like lawyers, and people like health professionals.
Yeah.
That's about all I can think of. Obviously, there's more. That's the only thing that's on my mind right now.
Yeah.
But,
No, I understand that.
you know, it's compared to like the breadth of degrees that are out there that people feel like they need to get. A lot of these you really shouldn't have to get. It's simply the licensing behind them. Because a lot of the occupational licensing that we're talking about requires you to have a degree to even consider getting into it.
Right.
Consider taking a test. Like, it's insanity.
Yeah, and it's this whole system that's been, propped up on, universities and others pushing the narrative that it's the only way to have the body of knowledge to get into something. And, apprenticeship programs and things like that are typically far more productive at giving someone a career that they stick with for a long time, even. So we're talking, a bunch of different kind of financial spots that people can get themselves in or out of. I want to talk a little bit more about Little Liberty specifically, because I know it's a great thing that you started, and I've been following along on the Facebook pages and stuff in the community as well. And I think, even the small stuff that I've just interacted with here and there has been awesome. So I want to hear more about it and more what you're doing.
Oh, dude, I appreciate that one. So just the rundown. Little Liberty is a business I started to help empower the communities of color within Boston with financial and economic literacy. Those are my values.
Yep.
This is everything I do to try and use this company to kind of promote and kind of get out there. So so far I've created this group called the Little Nation. We have about 97 members in there right now, which is pretty good growth. I created the group January 1st. Really, all I use the group to do is talk about, like, okay, like I'll use, for instance, I'll post up a stock, for instance.
Yep.
To see people how it might be doing, and then I'll be like, are there any symbols here like you don't know about, or like what do you wish to know more about crypto, or what are you interested in the financial field, and like how can I assist you? Oftentimes people will just comment. There's been a lot of engagement. I've been really, really happy to see that too. But oftentimes, people will just comment underneath the post like, where can I find out more about cryptocurrencies? What's a Bitcoin wallet? What is Bitcoin? How does crypto work? Or even as far down as like financial literacy, like where as far as like budgeting goes, credit building, all these more important topics. Like, I just had a credit workshop not too long ago on a Zoom, and it seemed like people really seem to love it. Where I was talking about sort of like, I didn't really get into debt to income ratios, but I got into like the basic principles of credit, like credit utilization rate, payment, like keeping your payment history up, just make like factors that can help keep your credit score high and building. I think for the next one, I definitely want to get into some more technical terms like DTI, which is your debt to income ratio, and talk about just a lot of things that are more applicable to the community. Like definitely more stuff like child support, because honestly, the majority, like I want to say like 54%, when I looked at my analytics, 54% of my group, of my followers are men. So I definitely want to get that out there, for the information out there to them. And even with like the budgeting stuff, like, shoot, I've been talking about discount game within the Little Nation. I'll post like memes up sometimes. I'll make memes. I'll make informational advertisements.
Yep.
With like specifically like branded content and all that. Like, I really want it to be, I'm really trying to build a community here where we sort of break down this financial barrier we've created in this country.
Yes.
So that we can all get together and talk more about our finances in an open and honest space. It's also part of the reason why I've made the group private, because I don't want people to just come in and see everybody's situation.
Right.
Because as you know, one of my rules is no bullying for anyone's financial situation, no transphobia, no homophobia, no racism, period.
Yep.
We're not doing that here. This is an open and honest community, and we're here for love. We're here for love. We're here for honesty, and we're not gonna do any of that negative talk.
Yeah, and it's really interesting and so true that you have to have that type of foundation in that community in order to be able to have those conversations. I mean, talking about your money situation is very difficult for a lot of people. I mean, it's one of the big things you're not supposed to talk about, how much money you make or what your financial situation is. And I think being able to, I think you're a great person for this, because you do very well making people feel comfortable, and you just have a very kind of compassionate message and just the way about you, which I think is just, it's rare. Like, people who typically talk money and deal with money are very cold. And sometimes that is useful for certain specific things, but 9 times out of 10, it just makes you feel awkward talking to them about your financial situation.
Right.
Where you make this community very welcoming and honest and open about about your financial situation and others, they're going to get so much more back from that. And I think that's something that doesn't connect with people, especially talking finances, but talking about a ton of stuff. If you don't have that basic human connection with someone else, you're not going to get nearly half as much as you get, if you establish that as a foundation, whether it be, talking about anything, politics or your finances, or educating people on something that they need to hear, making that individual kind of communication, that human relationship, I think just opens it up so much. And that's one of the big things I love and I wanted to talk to you about, because I think it's wonderful to see it in that community, man. It's really cool,
man. I really appreciate it, but like this kind of, I'm not trying to shoot my own horn here, like, but it's like the level of like respect for other people, like love I want to spread. It didn't come naturally, it came through fire. Like, I've definitely hurt people. I've definitely been hurt, and it's through learning from those times you hurt others and those times you've been hurt that you learn what love means. You learn how to love others, and you learn how to spread, love, and how to create that within other people. So like I really, that's my new goal. Like, I've been going into 2021 with this whole, like, sounds kind of like cliche, but no toxicity 2021. We're not doing that for 21,
yeah.
We're trying to keep it not zen, but we're trying to keep it, human, trying to keep it respectful.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to, woosah.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think it's something that it's funny. Every libertarian I've talked to on this podcast so far has had that message. And then next week I'm talking to Ashley Shade, and she's, her whole campaign that she does for any single thing she wants to do is about love and compassion, and spreading that is the message of liberty for her. And it's just such a wonder. I mean, you, her, Dave Jones, Spike Cohen, everyone that I've had on this show,
like, and actually are like the heavy hitters, man. Like, me and Ash were having like a conversation, and we called each other at like 11 a.m. because we had set up a meeting the day before. Next thing we know, it's like 2 p.m. because we've been talking and we're just like clicking so well. Like,
yeah.
Honestly, talking to her was amazing because it's like we share so many values of liberty, right? I think that's being lost in the liberty movement, to be honest with you. Being a libertarian to me is about having values of equity, justice, love, period. That's what the NAP represents to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I get to own all the guns I want to kill who I want. I'm a firm believer in guns, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But to me, it's not so much a selfish principle. I think we need to get out of that kind of, we need to like sort of push out that mindset a little bit and challenge it.
Yep.
Because to me, I feel like community is very important.
100%.
Really important. So it's not all, to me, not everything, it should be surrounded by this idea of Ayn Rand's objectivism.
Yeah.
When we can exist in communities, man. So
absolutely. I think the community, and I talked a little bit about this actually on Tuesday. The community does a ton to empower the individual. That is the whole message of liberty gets lost in this individualist mentality of I'm going to be by myself, do what I want, and no one can tell me what to do. Sure, that could be one way you live your life, but we are a social creature. We need to interact with people in our community, and we need that community to empower us to be ourselves, to be individuals, and to feel comfortable doing so. And right now, that's not the case. Most folks I know cannot walk out their front door and be themselves 100% of the time. And that is awful. I think one of the big things that community does is help people feel comfortable to do that and to be themselves and to be an individual. And I think that message gets lost. It's a nuance that just people don't pick up on in the liberty movement.
I definitely agree with you. I think that we promote as a movement way too much this sort of shallow idea that you were in the world alone.
Right.
And to me, that's a very bleak message. I'm not gonna lie.
Same
Right?
here.
Like, I feel like as a libertarian, my message of liberty is you don't hurt me, I don't hurt you, we Gucci.
Yep.
But we can all build together. We can build a whole nation, a whole society together, man. Like, we wouldn't have anything if it weren't for community.
Yeah.
If it weren't, I like to think of the world also as trade lines, right? Because if the contractors who built my home didn't have an architect behind them, didn't have investors or whatever funding this project behind them, we wouldn't be anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's sort of thinking in that, like, everything is a communal project. Everything takes multiple people. Everything takes more than just one. There's something I'm also still learning in a lot of different aspects of my life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to apply it to way more different aspects of my life. But this philosophy, like community, it's not that it's the end all. Community is not the end all be all of everything, but it definitely has a lot of value.
Absolutely. So we're right up against it now. I wanted to make sure we had some time to plug the event that you have coming up in a couple months here. And yeah, I want to give you the floor, man.
Oh, man. So April 19th, save the date. This is going to be sort of like, I'm planning to have a rally in the Boston Commons, sort of introducing Boston to the LP, having a lineup of speakers from Boston. Doing a lot of their good work, like sort of people from the New Democracy Coalition, people like Kevin Peterson, who's helping change the name of Faneuil Hall. Peter Faneuil was a slave trader, so he's definitely important to have as we navigate getting introduced to Boston, introducing ourselves to Boston, getting more people like sort of like a slate of representatives who are running right now. Domingos De Rosa, who's running for city council at large for Boston, Jacob Moreno, who's running for District 4 in Boston, and Leon Rivera, who's running for District 7 in Boston. And a ton more. I want a few bigger speakers there. I'm not gonna say their names just yet because I don't want to make any early promises. See whether or not they can come. Still trying to work it out, but you know,
I'm with you, man.
But yeah, I'm looking at and I'm trying to incorporate some larger liberty voices, like people like Spyco and Vermin Supreme. Definitely, if Ashley would be interested, Ashley Shade. And having sort of like also one of the people from my affiliate probably speak, Catherine Enzor, who works with the American Kratom Association.
Yep.
Because these talks need to be had, and obviously having like people like Yahaira Lopez from the Southern Roxbury Partnership, because again, these talks need to be had. We need people who are representing the city. We need stuff like methadone miles to be at the forefront of our policy.
Yep.
We need abuses against people even in the police force, people like Brenda James in her story.
Yep.
Like Brenda James, she's been someone who's been constantly abused. She's been in a 10-year fight just for pay. And we often don't look at these people because they're cops, but it's still like, okay, she was a Black woman, she was still abused by the system at the end of the day. So
no, man, I agree 100%. And I think it's funny, the folks that you mentioned speaking there will be speaking on this very show in the next month or so. So it's wonderful. And I have you to thank for introducing me to a lot of these folks. So this is great.
I love the work that you're doing too, man. Like, you're creating this whole platform for people to kind of get together, talk about what they're doing, dude. This is going to be huge. And like the work you're doing is important, especially for my community, especially for me. As me personally, the work that you're doing is important. You know, that's why I try to support you any way I can. That's why I love to see what you're doing. So I always check up on you like every other day. Like, how's Kennedy? You know?
Well, man, I appreciate that so much, and it's wonderful. Getting feedback that what I'm doing on a little show that I started to hope to do something good and try to get people talking that maybe wouldn't naturally talk because of the DRIL next to their name when they vote. Like, I hope more people have the hard conversation with each other and find ways to work together. I think we're not going to get there by fighting the whole time. We have to work together, or we're just going to lose every single time to the kind of corporate system that's been perpetuated for the last 100, 200 years. No, I completely agree. And thank you so much for the kind words, man. I appreciate it.
Dude, our division only serves like the sort of corporate headmasters and all these other people who are in super positions of power. Like, everyone who's bought out, our silence and our division only serves them. It does not serve us,
100%. And I thank you, man. You came on and we got to kind of do what we do, every few days on the phone for the folks in the post-political community. So no, I appreciate you coming on. This was great. I'd love to have you on again. We'll talk, I'm sure, a lot more about the event. And anytime you want to plug, the event or anything you got going on, feel free to share it in the community page. Now, folks have been introduced to you. They know who those messages are coming from, which is cool too. Jacob does the same thing. He posts a lot of the stuff that he's working on in the community as well. And it gets people talking. It's a good forum to have those communications and conversations. So.
Yeah, that's so dope. I'm loving this. Dude,
awesome, man.
I'm loving the communities we're building, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you very much, and have a good night. I will talk to you later.
You too, man.
Thanks. So that was Jeremy. I love talking with Jeremy. I talk with Jeremy on my own, when I'm not doing the podcast, and he's a wonderful friend. I love him dearly, and I am super impressed and proud of all the stuff that he's doing in Boston and elsewhere. I mean, it's just, I want folks to go out and support, anything that he shares in the community, go and talk about it and learn about it. I think there's a lot of good opportunities for people to get involved on their own, or for people to help support, the stuff that he's already doing. Cause it's, like I said, we're not going to get there by doing things on our own, or trying to, fight this incredibly big system with a handful of us. So we need to build these communities. We need to build these connections and have these conversations with folks that we might not typically have because they have a different political affiliation. So no, I hope everyone had an incredible time watching. I thank everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to mention it in the comments. Jeremy or myself will go in and answer anything you need. I always do so. So I hope everyone had a good night and enjoyed the show. Thanks.